All right, welcome back. Today, we are diving deep into the absolute bedrock, the master key to understanding pretty much every cyber attack in history. This isn't just some abstract theory, it's the fundamental DNA of all digital security. We're talking about the CIA Triad.
And no, before you ask, we're not talking about spies and secret agencies. In our worlds, CIA stands for something way more foundational: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So here's the plan. We're going to start by building our core idea with the three-legged stool analogy. Then we'll take a deep dive into each of those pillars, one by one, and finally we'll look at the constant, impossible balancing act that is modern cybersecurity. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start with this core idea. I want you to picture a simple three-legged stool. You know the kind. It's perfectly stable, perfectly strong, as long as all three legs are there. But its strength is also its biggest weakness. If you kick out even one of those legs, just one, the whole thing completely collapses. That's our foundation. So these are the legs of our stool. First, we have confidentiality, which is all about keeping secrets. Then there's integrity, which is about making sure you can trust your data. And finally, availability, which means you can actually get to your data when you need it. And here's the kicker, and you really need to get this. Every single cyber attack, from the most sophisticated nation-state hack down to the simplest computer virus, is specifically designed to attack and break at least one of these three legs. All right, let's dive into that first pillar, confidentiality. This is the one everybody kind of thinks of when they hear the word security. This is the digital version of spies and secret messages, right? It's all about the art of secrecy, of keeping information out of the wrong hands. So what is it really? Well, at its core, it's super simple. Only the people who are supposed to see the data should be able to see the data. That's it. It's all about preventing what we call unauthorized disclosure. You know, think about it like this. It's the difference between sending a postcard and sending a sealed letter written in a secret code. A postcard, that has super low confidentiality. Anybody who handles it, the mail carrier, your neighbor, they can all read your message. But a letter that's sealed in an envelope and on top of that is written in a secret code, that's high confidentiality. It's locked down. And this is where you get all those big headline-grabbing attacks, right? Massive data breaches where millions of records are stolen, hackers sniffing packets of data out of the air on public Wi-Fi, or even just simple password theft. So how do we defend against this? Well, the main weapon in our arsenal is encryption. Just think of it like a super complex mathematical lock. A thief can steal the box, sure, but if they don't have the key to that lock, all they have is a bunch of useless, unreadable garbage. Okay, so that's confidentiality. But now we get to our second pillar, integrity. And I gotta tell you, this is the one that often gets overlooked, but man, it can be so much more dangerous. We're not talking about secrecy anymore. We're talking about something more fundamental, trust. So let me ask you a question. And really think about this for a second. What on earth could be worse than a hacker stealing your most private, most secret information? The answer? This. Having your data silently changed, corrupted, and turned into a flat-out lie, maybe without you even knowing it happened. That right there is a failure of integrity. Let me give you a classic old-school example. Let's say you write a check for $10. An attacker gets a hold of it. They don't steal it, they just alter it. They carefully add 2 zeros. Now that check says $1,000. You see, the information wasn't stolen, the check still goes to the bank, but its integrity was completely destroyed. The data is now a lie. Okay, that's a check. Big deal, right? Well, let's crank this up to a life or death scenario. Imagine a hospital's patient database. A hacker gets in, they don't steal a single thing. Instead, they just change one single character in one patient's medical record. Blood type A positive becomes B negative. Now picture the chaos of an emergency room. A doctor rushes to the computer, trusts the data on the screen, and orders a blood transfusion. They give the patient the wrong blood. The result is catastrophic, potentially fatal. The data was there, it was even confidential, but it was wrong. It was a lie. That is why an integrity attack can be so much more devastating than a confidentiality attack.
That quote just says it all, doesn't it? The data wasn't stolen, it was changed. So how do we stop this from happening? Well, the main defense here is something called hashing. The best way to think about it is like a digital fingerprint. You take any piece of data, a file, a message, and you run it through a special math function. It spits out a unique code, its hash. Now, if you go back and change even a single comma in the original data and run it through again, you get a completely different fingerprint. It's the ultimate digital tamper-proof seal. And that brings us to the third and final leg of our stool, availability. This one is really the unsung hero of the whole triad. Because think about it, you can have the most secret, most trustworthy data in the entire world locked away in a digital fortress, but if you can't get to it when you actually need it, it is completely and utterly useless. The best way to get this is to imagine your favorite shop. It's open for business, the products are safe inside, the cash register works perfectly, but there's a huge crowd of 500 people, all hired to just stand there, shoulder to shoulder, completely blocking the front door. No real customers can get in or out. The shop itself is fine, but it's not available. For all intents and purposes, it might as well be closed. Well, guess what? That is exactly how a distributed denial of service, or DDoS, attack works in the digital world. A normal user, like you, sends, one request at a time to a website. But hackers build these huge armies of infected computers called botnets, and they command all of them to send millions upon millions of requests to the same website all at the exact same time. They create that digital mob, and the website servers just get completely overwhelmed until they crash. And for you, the legitimate user, trying to get to that website, this is what you see. Access denied. The service is down. The attack worked. So, the big bad wolf for availability is the DDoS attack. And how do you defend against it? Well, it's all about planning for the worst. It's about things like redundancy, which means having backup servers just sitting there, waiting to take over the instant a primary one goes down. It's about having good backups and spreading your resources out so that no single point of failure can knock you completely offline. Okay, so there you have it, our three pillars: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But here's the secret, the real kicker. You can never, ever have a perfect 100% of all three at the same time. Security is always a trade-off, and usually it's a trade-off against convenience. It's a constant balancing act. So let's go back to our three-legged stool for a minute and ask ourselves a really important question. What would happen if a bank put all of its effort into perfect confidentiality, making sure nobody from the outside could ever see account balances, but they completely ignored integrity? What would that look like? It would be pure chaos. An employee could change your account balance from $500 to $5 or $5 million, and nobody would have any way of knowing if that number was true or not. The trust, the very thing that the entire global financial system is built on, would just evaporate. And that right there is why different organizations have to make a choice. They have to prioritize one pillar over the others. For a spy agency, if a secret gets out, the mission is over. So for them, confidentiality is everything. For a bank, the numbers have to be right, period. Integrity is king. And for a company like Netflix, it's all about availability. When you hit play, that movie has to start. It's that simple. So you see, the big takeaway here is that the CIA Triad, it's not just some list of words you have to memorize for a test. It's a mental model. It is the fundamental framework, the ruler that security professionals use to measure risks and make critical decisions every single day. So there you have it. You now have the fundamental lens that security pros use to see the world, that three-legged stool of security. You understand the what they're trying to protect, but next time, we're going to leave the theory behind and look at the how. We're going to explore the weapons hackers use to bypass all this technical stuff by attacking the single most vulnerable part of any system, the human being. See you in the next episode.